Hello, I'm Marc Desgroseilliers from Technical Support here at Pix4D, and today I'm going to talk to you about measurements. So that's one of the great advantages of having an accurate 3D model of your object or scene of interest is that you're going to be able to make measurements. Let's see what are the requirements in a project to be able to make accurate measurements. The first one is to make sure that you have good reconstruction of your model. We discussed this in some other webinars, what are the techniques to make sure that your reconstruction is accurate, but for example, you can inspect the point cloud, make sure that it looks good, that it's faithful to the scene that you were shooting, but also you want to click a few 3D points and look at the corresponding images and make sure that the reprojection is accurate in the images and is always at the same point. The other requirement to get good measurements is to have either ground control points or scale constraints. In the case of ground control points, you'll want to make sure that they are well spread out throughout the project. You don't want them clustered in one corner because then the error can accumulate in the other regions of the project. And you also want your GCPs to be around your point of interest. It's a good idea to have one GCP close to a big object that you want to measure, for example. Same thing with scale constraint. You want them to be around the zone that you'll be measuring. And it's also a good idea to have 2 or 3 scale constraints if you can, because this will reduce clicking error, for example. So in the mapper, you can measure 3 kind of objects, 1D, 2D, and 3D objects by inserting the appropriate object. So you'll be able to measure distances, areas, and volumes. In the case of distances, you'll be inserting a polyline object. So this is quite straightforward. You'll just be drawing a line in the project and you'll get the measurement that is associated. And if you click the endpoints in the images, then you'll also get an error estimate for the measurement. The surface object is quite similar in the sense that you will insert a surface and you will get the 2D and 3D length and area. So what do we mean by 2D length, 3D length? Well, the 3D length will take into account all 3 coordinates of your object, so X, Y, and Z. Whereas the 2D length or 2D area will only take into account the first 2 coordinates of your objects, that is the X and Y coordinates. The third kind of object that you can insert in the mapper to get measurement is the volume. So in 2.2 we have a new interface to measure volumes. So you get a new volumes tab that you can select on the left, and you'll be able to click on the insert volume icon. You'll get a new volume. You'll insert it in the mapper exactly as you did in previous version, that is clicking to add the different vertices of the volume. And you'll get a list of the volumes that you've inserted with the appropriate measurements. For example, fill volume, cut volume, total volume. Then as you can see, there's a little icon that you can click to display the settings associated to a particular volume object. And in this settings panel, you can set the base altitude of the volume object. So you can set it, for example, to be the altitude of the lowest point of the volume or the highest point, or you can even set a custom altitude for the base of the volume. So this is quite useful. For example, if you've got slightly more complicated objects that you want to measure, let's say your volume is on a slope and then you need to be a little bit more careful. So this is an invaluable tool to be able to make measurements in this case. So let's see what this looks like in the mapper. Let's start with adding a polyline to get distance measurement. So let's say that I'm interested in the length of this building here. I would come here, add a new polyline, and I can click it on my ray cloud and right click to finish. As you can see, I have my two type points that are created here. I can refine them by clicking on the images as such. And now, once I've clicked on the images, I can click apply. This will update the error estimate for the distances. And as you can see, I have here the 3D length and the 2D length. So that's how you would make distance measurements in the mapper. Let's see now maybe for a surface. So I can find a surface in the project. Let's say this here, right? So I want to insert a new surface. I go left click, left click, left click, and then since I want to finish the surface, I'm going to do a right click. Now you can see the surface here. You can also refine it in the images, and you have the information, so the 3D area, 2D area. Great. So now let's move on to the third kind of object, which is maybe the object that interests the higher number of people, and those are volumes. So now in Pix4Dmapper 2.2, you have a tab that's devoted to volume measurements. So let's go to this tab. You have it here. And now you see you have your densified point cloud, and you can add a volume. So here's my new volume. Let's say I want to measure this stockpile here. So I'm going to start clicking. As such. So now I have my volume, and I can compute the different characteristics. So I have the cut volume, fill volume, and the total volume. And if I want, I can, here it is, and now I can edit I can move the vertices around a little bit to make sure that I'm getting exactly what I want to measure. Click compute, again, I have my statistics here. And if I want to adjust the base plane, then I would go in the settings as such. It's also possible to add a new volume, and so to have many volumes, and then I can insert my new volume. So I want to measure the volume of this truck here. There you go, compute. And that's how you would work with volumes in 2.2. It's also possible to import them and export them. Let me conclude this video by making a few remarks about the way that we make volume measurements in version 2.2 of the software. In this version, the volume measurements are exclusively based on the DSM. This allows for more accurate volume measurement, but it also comes with a few caveats. First thing is that you will need to make sure that you ran step 3 and that the DSM is generated before making volume measurements. The second thing to keep in mind is that if you modify the point cloud and you want these modifications to be reflected in the volume measurements, you will need to regenerate the DSM, that is, for example, run step 3 again, to make sure that these modifications are taken into account and that the volume measurements are updated. So, I know that a lot of users use these measurement tools, and that measurements are a very big part of Pix4Dmapper. So I hope that you found this video instructive and that it's going to help you to make good, accurate measurements. And I'll see you in the next video.